Dinesh D'Souza, conservative commentator, filmmaker of the latest Trump card, now available on demand. Dinesh, you say that big tech is moving us toward this Orwellian society. What did this hearing today tell you?
It was creepy from the very beginning, and the crucial moment for me came when Ted Cruz began to ask Jack Dorsey, do you know anything about voter fraud? No. And then Ted Cruz asked him, well, why do you keep putting warning labels on the president's tweets? And then Dorsey, in pure Orwellian language, goes, well, I was just trying to advance the conversation. Now, let's think about the meaning of the word conversation for a minute. If you and I are having a conversation, and I ban you from speaking further, or I tell you to delete what you just said or you can't continue speaking, or every time you say something I disagree with, I stick a warning label on you, I mean, Laura, the conversation would quickly come to an end. So far from furthering conversation, what Jack Dorsey is doing is manipulating conversation, stopping conversation, pretending that disputed issues and legitimate arguments don't really exist or don't have any validity. So Orwell talked about the perversion of language, and that was only one unmistakable signature that we saw today.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dinesh. I found their entire presence to be creepy. You know, I'm not talking about the long, scraggly beard or the unblinking stares. Just the way they seem completely disconnected, maybe they're just good actors, from any legitimate concerns that their customers have about what they're doing. I mean, and that's, I guess, what being multi-billionaires allows them to do, just insulate themselves from the reality of what's out there.
It just threw my mind back to my college days when we first read Orwell. You know, we learned about how Orwell created this imaginary dystopia, and if he modeled it on anything, it was modeled on Stalin's Russia, some faraway totalitarian society. And it struck me how closely Orwell is describing America today. The presence, for example, of newspeak, the idea that sort of the news becomes indistinguishable from propaganda. Huge important stories don't get covered by mainstream media. What gets covered is a pageantry of lies. Or digital censorship. The way in which, for example, people are turned into public non-persons. It's almost like they get thrown off the public space. They don't get to participate in the public dialogue. And then these creepy individuals are the face of that. Somehow these unelected figures hire a bunch of people, and they have, in a sense, unappealable decision-making power over what we get to say and when we get to say it, including the President of the United States. I mean, when they put labels, for example, on Trump and say things like official sources disagree about the election, I'm thinking official sources. Who are you talking about? Are you talking about the Supreme Court? They're an official source. The Congress, they're an official source. Trump himself is an official. The Electoral College, they're an official source. No, they're talking about none of these. By official sources, they mean themselves and their allies in the mainstream media. Somehow these clowns have been elevated to, quote, official sources in this Orwellian world that we now live in.
It's brilliant. And I just wanted to add that they are, even if you could enforce it, I doubt that these people would ever concede power within their own companies. I don't know how they could enforce something like that. Certainly a rewriting of the code to include this kind of thing as it has evolved into. But how to punish those people? That's the question I ask every time I watch that. This guy, Jack Dorsey, essentially dodged every question that Ted Cruz threw at him. And I really wish that the committee had the prerogative to put these people in jail for a long time, just because they're they're more than the mere face of their companies. They are the bosses that give the orders to the guys below, and those guys, programmers or whatever you want to call them, to get the rules on the street made exactly as they dictate. But this is the head of the snake, both of them. So media censorship has to come to an end. And one of the ways it can come to an end is, as Dinesh told us before, is that their competitors can begin attacking and promoting free speech, and certainly a mass of the population will flock to them rather than these clowns. So we can only hope for the best in the future. But right now, I see no definitive way to punish these people. But hopefully, if Trump is reelected, then there'll be a reckoning for them. Because these guys, the two of them, and the CEO of Google, should answer for their crimes.